Amine is an artist that exploded onto the scene with his smash hit Caroline back in 2016. Since then, he's had other huge songs like Reel It In, Spice Girls, and Heebie Jeebies. He also has 2 extremely solid albums and 2 very fun mixtapes. His discography has a variety of different genres, sounds, and experimentation. Amine has proven himself as a very talented rapper, singer, and overall artist. But despite all of the good music Amine consistently puts out, I always see him being left out of the conversation when talking about the best artists in hip-hop right now. At the same time, I'm seeing tons of people on the internet say that Amine is super underrated, so much so that Amine said himself that he had to mute the word underrated on Twitter because he was tired of seeing it. Personally, I think Amine can be overlooked, but I'm not quite sure he's underrated, so let's take a look into it. I want to clarify that I'm not saying that he's not popular, because he's definitely very popular. He has 1.7 million followers on Instagram, 8 million monthly listeners on Spotify, hundreds of millions of plays on his top songs, and I'm sure he makes plenty of money. Amine is very successful, but my personal issue is that I never see him being discussed when people are talking about the best new rappers of the new generation. I also want to clarify that this video is obviously going to be very opinionated, and I would love to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions in the comments below. I've also seen Amine say that he's tired of being called underrated all the time and he's happy with where he's at, and I would be too. So sorry to Amine for the title, but the point of this video isn't really to keep pushing the he's underrated narrative, but it's just to figure out why he might be left out of the conversation I mentioned earlier. So let's look into why Amine may be overlooked and what might change that. For starters, Amine came into the game with his smash hit Caroline off of his album Good For You. This is his most popular album, and in my opinion, it isn't his best. It was a good pop rap album and a very solid debut, but I think he's demonstrated a lot more talent on future albums. With this album and many of its songs being most people's introduction to Amine, they may have brushed off his future releases, expecting them to sound the same. Ironically though, no 2 Amine projects sound the same. Also, with how big Caroline was, it's likely that a lot of people expected him to sound just like that song and didn't want to check out anything else. Especially with how much that song was played, I could definitely see people get tired of hearing it, so they wouldn't want to listen to more songs that may be like that. Fun fact, I saw Amine live recently, and he actually played Caroline without the beat, and everyone in the crowd was singing it a cappella because everyone knew the words because of how popular that song was. It was super cool, and I even made it to his story. Kinda. Anyway, while Good For You may not have been the best introduction to Amine, it was definitely a solid project. One of my favorite songs from the album is a song called Turf. I think that song in particular is super underrated. It has a great meaning and it has fantastic vocals from Amine and Charlie Wilson. So definitely check that out if you have not already. The next time that most casual listeners probably heard Amine was on the song Reel It In. That was another huge hit from his EP LP mixtape album 1.5. This project had a few other big songs like Dr. Whoever and Blackjack. This was definitely a rap album with a lot of hard-hitting songs, but in my opinion, it lacked a little bit of diversity and could get a little bit repetitive after listening a few times. By no means am I saying it was a bad album, but I am saying if people listened to it after hearing the smash hit of Reel It In, it would have been really hard to make the rest of the album live up to the expectations set by that song, because it really was one of the best songs off of that album. Personally, I also really liked Why and Chingy, but some of the other songs were a little bit forgettable. So due to both of these albums having Amine's biggest hits, they really introduced hip-hop to Amine, and it may not have been the best introduction, which could have turned away potential future listeners. Again, this is pure speculation, but I do think this could be one of the reasons he may not get as much attention now as I think he should. My next reason he may be overlooked, and probably the largest reason, is because he's super unique and doesn't fit into any one box. Of course, he's primarily a rapper, but every single album he puts out has a different sound. Good For You was more of a pop rap sounding album, 1.5 was more of a trap album, Limbo was more of a hip hop album, although it was very diverse and had a lot of different subgenres within it, and 2.5 was an experimental pop, hyperpop, rap type of album. These are very loose definitions and genres, and they may not be super accurate, but they do paint the picture to show how diverse his catalog is. Amine doesn't go out of his way to cater to a mainstream audience, but instead he just makes whatever he feels like making. I'm sure Amine could very easily make a melodic rap song to try to get a smash hit, since that's what's popular right now, but that doesn't seem to be his objective. His last project, 2.5, was an experimental rap hyperpop type of album that a lot of rap fans probably wouldn't like, and I'm sure Amine knew this before he released it. The majority of large hip-hop artists are not going to take a risk like that when they're making their next project, especially if they're concerned about making money. Amine says, "The 0.5 projects are the breaks in between albums where I give myself the freedom to make music without expectations, focusing instead on spontaneity and the best of what comes from the stream of conscious creation, which is why they release unexpectedly without a long rollout." So the objective of these projects is just to have fun making music without attempting to make any hits, which is probably why the last one went so under the radar. It's unfortunate though, because I did really like this album, and if you haven't heard it, I strongly recommend checking out the songs Colors, Okay With Me, Between the Lines, and Meant to Be, which are my personal favorites off the project. He also said his goal with Limbo wasn't to make hits, but to demonstrate that he can really rap, and he did just that. He had a variety of different types of rap songs, some more experimental, some more old school sounding, some more melodic, and some hard hitting. Songs like Shimmy and Pressure in My Palms really demonstrate how good at rapping Amine is. This was definitely one of my favorite albums of 2020, and I'm sure many people can say the same. Limbo was also his highest charting album, charting at number 16 on the Billboard 100, making it a pretty successful commercial project. Some of my personal favorites from this project are Can't Decide, Pressure in My Palms, Compensating, Shimmy, and Riri. Again, if you haven't heard this album, definitely check those 5 out. My last reason is that if we're being honest, most casual rap fans don't really care if you're the best rapper, if you experiment, or if you have a diverse discography. They just want to hear music that they like and don't want to look too hard for it. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with just listening to whatever Spotify playlist pops up on your homepage, or listening to the radio, or however else you find music, because not everyone is a little dork on the internet that wants to go look for obscure artists that make experimental music or weird music or whatever. Amine doesn't sound like the Lil Babies, the Lil Durks, or the Roddy Riches, and that's what's popular right now. Of course, he still has a huge fan base and a ton of supporters, but the chances of him getting into that conversation with the most popular rappers right now are pretty slim because his music isn't quite trendy. Obviously, he could cater to that sound, but as we know, Amine just makes whatever type of music he likes to make. In my opinion, Amine has a very similar situation to Denzel Curry, where he may not be mainstream, but he does have a very strong fan base and is very well respected by a lot of hip-hop listeners. Like Denzel says on the song Perks, I may be overlooked, but I'm never underpaid, and I'm sure that really applies to Amine too. So I think overlooked might be a better word than underrated. That's why I've been using it more throughout this video. Obviously, I think Amine should get a little bit more attention, but it's not like he doesn't have millions of fans. At the end of the day, Amine is a super talented artist, and although he may not get as much attention as he deserves, he's still super successful. He just goes about his success in a very low-key way. As he continues improving his discography, I could definitely see him making his way into the best of this generation conversation. I think Amine has tons of potential, and I'm definitely excited to see his career continue to grow. If you haven't listened to Amine since Caroline or Reel It In, I highly recommend checking out the songs that I said were my favorite from each album, because they'll really remind you how talented he is and how diverse his discography is. If you like this video, you might like my video where I talked about YB and Amir and how he kind of ruined his career, and if I think he ever has a chance of making a comeback. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. This has been Matty Balls, and I'll see you guys next time.